The events in Yemen over the past year mark more than another phase in a long war. They signal a structural shift in regional alignments. What unfolded was not a routine disagreement among allies, but a collision of strategic worldviews. Saudi Arabia entered Yemen to preserve territorial integrity on its southern flank and prevent the normalization of fragmentation. The United Arab Emirates, by contrast, pursued a narrower but more aggressive agenda, empowering local partners, marginalizing Islamist actors, and securing maritime nodes even if that meant encouraging separatist outcomes. When these approaches converged in southern Yemen, they crossed Saudi red lines. The immediate trigger was the behavior of UAE-backed forces, particularly the Southern Transitional Council, commonly called STC. What began as tactical cooperation evolved into a parallel political project. From Riyadh's perspective, the STC was no longer a tool, but a precedent, one that threatened to institutionalize fragmentation on Saudi Arabia's doorstep. The Saudi response was deliberately forceful. Direct military pressure against STC positions was not meant as signaling. It was meant to reassert hierarchy. Yemen became the arena where Saudi Arabia chose to impose limits on Emirati autonomy. These sensitivities were amplified by parallel developments in the Horn of Africa. The UAE's deep engagement with Somaliland and its reluctance to firmly condemn talk of international recognition by Israel reinforced Saudi fears that Abu Dhabi was becoming comfortable with legitimizing de facto breakaway entities. To Riyadh, this was not about Somaliland alone. It was about a replicable model: ports over sovereignty, access over borders, that could destabilize fragile regions adjacent to the kingdom. Yemen, already fractured, was where Saudi Arabia decided to stop that model from spreading. As a result, Yemen is now moving into a containment phase. The UAE's withdrawal of most of its forces, especially air power, has fundamentally weakened the STC. Without Emirati air support, intelligence, and logistics, the STC lacks the capacity to expand or consolidate independent rule. It is no longer a credible successionist force. It is a local actor struggling to hold ground. Saudi Arabia understands this asymmetry and is exploiting it carefully, reducing the STC's leverage without necessarily dismantling it, and steering the South back under a Saudi-managed political framework. The broader Saudi approach to Yemen has shifted accordingly. The objective is no longer victory, but stabilization, securing borders, freezing the Houthi front, and preventing permanent partition. Yemen is likely to remain unified in form, but divided in practice, with Saudi Arabia acting as the principal external arbiter. The UAE retains influence through economic and political channels, but its ability to shape outcomes through escalation has been curtailed. This recalibration in Yemen set the conditions for a more consequential realignment: Saudi Arabia's growing alignment with Turkey. This is not a sudden alliance, but a pragmatic convergence. Riyadh needs partners that can deliver operational capability, manage proxies, and influence Sunni political networks. Turkey offers precisely that. Where the UAE prioritized autonomy and maritime leverage, Turkey offers manpower, drones, and political reach. For Saudi Arabia, Ankara is not a replacement ally, but a counterbalance, one that restores Saudi leverage in theaters where Emirati actions had complicated Riyadh's objectives. The implications of this alignment extend directly to Libya. For years, Libya has been shaped by a frozen proxy equilibrium: Turkey backing the Western authorities in Tripoli, and the UAE supporting Khalifa Haftar's eastern camp, with Saudi Arabia providing quiet political depth. If Riyadh now leans toward Turkey, or even withdraws that depth, the balance shifts. This does not mean Haftar will fall. His forces remain entrenched, and Egypt continues to view him as a security buffer. But his strategic room to maneuver shrinks. Without broad Gulf backing, major offensives become risky and unsustainable. The UAE, facing Saudi restraint, is unlikely to bankroll escalations that could isolate it regionally. Instead, Abu Dhabi will preserve influence through economic instruments, oil networks, and selective political ties. The net result is a freeze that favors Turkey without granting it outright victory. A Saudi-Turkish alignment stabilizes Libya's front lines, constrains the eastern camp, and normalizes Turkish presence, all without decisive battlefield outcomes. The UAE loses escalation freedom, but not relevance. Its influence becomes quieter, more commercial, and less military. Across Yemen and Libya, a consistent pattern emerges. Saudi Arabia is reasserting itself as the guardian of territorial order. Turkey is positioning itself as the indispensable military-political partner in GCC crisis management. The UAE is narrowing its ambitions to controllable maritime and economic domains. Yemen was the rupture point, but Libya will be where the consequences of this new access become fully visible.